Okay, now I'm recording an episode, kind of a short one, hopefully, although who knows. I'm going to introduce a little segment here called May I Shit on Your Religion? It's a rhetorical question. And here's what came to mind. At the time of recording this, we're doing the Israeli Palestinian thing that the entire internet has become educated about instantly, obviously. And you have the usual suspects in both sides, all sides, whatever, that I don't even need to, at this point, go over. I don't even have to tell you what the sides are, because that itself would be a waste of your time, because anybody who's online at all knows all the sides to all issues at all times, because they're vomited out within seconds, and people immediately go to their respective corners and then just raise the volume from there. So, I'm just going to touch on the religion aspect briefly, which is the part I find the most tedious. And yes, I realize that there's the argument. Like I said, you know all the arguments on all sides. So I'll just quickly reference one of the arguments, which is the idea that anytime somebody wants to criticize the religion of a situation as an aggravating factor, or as the late great Christopher Hitchens might say, the main factor, somebody else will say, no, it's geopolitical and the religion is just a vehicle. Tyrants and warlords will just use the religion, etc., not stopping to realize that if the religion wasn't there to be used in the first place, etc. But in any case, here's my only little observation about religion, which is I was reading today about King James, the homosexual. I love the use of that word in that way. It sounds so clinical and condemning. The homosexual King James, who wrote the Bible, essentially. He produced it, he funded it, he was the patron for the translation that you all are reading. The verse, you're not reading Armenian, you're not reading Greek. Is it Armenian? What was the language that Jesus Christ spoke? I looked that up. But anyway, Armenia sounds like a country. Aramaic, that's what I meant. You're not reading Aramaic, and you're not reading Greek. You're reading English, and specifically reading the homosexuals' version of English, King James. So just a little cute little observation for the devout religious fanatics that are, all up in arms about whatever they're up in arms about on any given day. You are reading a homosexual Bible. That's all. And it's just interesting, the lovers that he had, Buckingham, that's where Buckingham Palace comes from. Just interesting little observations like that I would bet most people don't know. And, of course, they would need to dismiss as irrelevant to their point, even though they don't know what their point is. All right. That's me shitting on your religion. Moving on. And this is a section called What's Wrong with Everyone. And I'm going to tell you what's wrong with everyone. I can't tell if people are serious, if they are agenda-driven, autistic, on the spectrum, stupid, just saying that for clicks. Those are the kind of things everybody says nowadays. They just say quickly, if you want to dispense with the other side's opinion about something. I have a friend, for example, that hates the right. And so he'll say, oh, so-and-so is just a parrot. Even though the so-and-so he's referring to is literally the least parrot of all parrots. This is a guy who actually goes the other direction and says exactly what he thinks. But he needs to believe that the guy is driven by whatever, the right wing's machine, and he's just told what to say. Meanwhile, the left is often the one that it's obvious, isn't it, at this point, that is the one that is much more guilty of being a parrot because they have handed down talking points that if you play them back to back from channel to channel to channel, they're literally word for word. It's very obvious they're all getting the same exact talking points from on high. That would be a parrot. You can compare 3 or 4 different channels and they're using the exact same language, phraseology, coining terms. Please, this is obviously either a overt parrot that's been instructed on what to say, or a de facto parrot because everybody just kind of comes together and naturally just, ends up saying the same thing anyway. So it functions as the same thing, not original thoughts. Very derivative would be the nicest way of putting it. So, because you can't tell where people are coming from, that clouds your ability to engage their argument. Because if I know that you're saying something you don't really mean, because it's just something that you're supposed to say for reasons, well, then why would I even bother engaging the argument? I can't get any deeper with you because there is nothing deeper, because you don't mean what you're saying, because it's just something you said because reasons. Reasons being clickbait, reasons being you're a parrot, reasons being that you are the press secretary for the president and you have to spin everything no matter what, because that's literally your job. So when you hear arguments online, you want to jump in and go, wait, but are you saying that because that's really what you think? Or are you that dumb? Or are you that partisan? Or are you that agenda driven? Or are you that clickbait driven? Or are you that much of a parrot? Or are you that brainwashed that you literally can't conceivably see the other side? I really do believe one of the things, and this is something Christopher Hitchens once said in a kind of a funny exchange with Sean Hannity, when he said, you give me, I hate to say it, you give me, I can't do his British accent, which I love, I hate to have to say it, but you give me the terrible impression of someone who's never read the arguments against your position. And that's something that seems obvious to me, that everybody should be able to, what is that word? It's the opposite of straw man. Is it Steel Man? Iron Man? Is that what it is? I looked it up as well. But basically, a steel man argument, steel manning, the practice of addressing the strongest form of the other person's argument, even if it isn't the one they presented. So, be able to hear the other person's position. And there's a guy, for example, I listen to, a conservative dude, that I enjoy. I enjoy that he exists because I consider him to be a pole on a spectrum. Now, whether he's sincere or not or whatever is irrelevant. That exists. Those thoughts exist. That paradigm exists. That point of view exists, regardless of who's expressing it or why they're expressing it. And I'm just happy that it exists, even if I don't agree with all of it, or a lot of it, because the other side exists, and that way you can kind of think through everything from both points of view. However, sometimes when I listen to him, I think to myself, there's this desire to want to clean up what he's saying. For him, you want to go, but you do understand that your premise is flawed, right? Or your conclusion doesn't follow from the premise that you started with. You do realize you're doing these sleight of hand. Well, it's sleight of hand if you're doing it on purpose. It's just sloppy thinking if you actually aren't. And he has such a rhythm and which is part of why it's fun to listen to him. He has such a rhythm of being sort of a plain talking wise guy, wise man, smart guy, that you can be lulled into going from this thought to the second thought to the third thought and go, yeah, okay, yeah, sure. But if you actually break it down, they don't follow. These thoughts don't follow from the one to the other. Even if by pointing that out, I'm moving away from the direction I want to be moving in because I actually agree with his conclusion, but not for the reasons he's stating. And that takes me to my bigger point, and the entire point of this little segment, and that is this. I'm so aggravated at the fact that I'm going to overstate this. This is hyperbolic. Nobody seems to understand anyone else's point of view. What the fuck is wrong with everyone? And then, of course, you go back to what I said earlier and you wonder, are they really not understanding it? Or are they just not able to say they understand it because, it's part of the agenda of the channel or part of their whatever. I see some podcasts lately where at least I feel like I'm getting that person's open, honest view. Even if it's not a very well informed view, or even if they do have some blind spots or biases or areas where they kind of go into a rage and talk over each other because at this point now they're getting smaller. And I guess that's one of the things we need to struggle with is to keep ourselves from becoming small in an exchange with someone. I know I spent my life a lot, especially the last, 12 years, maybe longer, around the part of society that is closer to the end of the spectrum that contains the smallest people. And by small, I mean a lower level on Maslow's hierarchy. I mean that operate closer to the id and not anywhere near the superego. That are a series, the people that are composed of, or is it comprised of? I don't know. They're made up. There you go. They're made up of a series of impulses, and that can be great for art. And I like to art with them, but I'm so frequently around people that are small in that way, and for whom extended analysis of anything would just go nowhere because they need to function based on impulse. And by impulse I mean emotional impulse. And their anger, their need for a rejoinder to something said if it pinches their ego, their need to win the power of an exchange makes them very small. And they're not operating large political machines, which is a different thing, or corporations, or businesses, or entrepreneurial activities, or banks, or there's places where playing power, since everything is about power anyway, ultimately, or not everything is about power, but power involves itself in every exchange at some level. There are some places where knowing how to play power games is appropriate because you're leading the charge. If you're, two competing football teams, you are trying to overpower the other side with tactics, with strength, etc. I mean, it is a power game. It's supposed to be a power game. I remember a while ago, several years ago, a photographer friend of mine was trying to sort of do that thing where you walk yourself backwards, like that Simpsons meme of Homer walking into the bush backwards. He was trying to walk himself out of a political conversation. This is something many of my friends do, which I find aggravating as well. A pox on all their houses, which is, I think that's fine to do with strangers when you're trying to not get into it with somebody in a bar that you just met. But it's a little annoying when you're dealing with people that you actually want to have deep exchanges with, that they try to just sidestep the whole thing and basically go, they're all liars, they're all thieves, they're all crooks. Yeah, but we're talking about this particular A versus B and which one's better and why. And for you to just go, they're all crooks, is a way for you not to cop to the fact that you are enabling one of the crooks in a particularly crooked way. And that's what we're trying to get at. And if you have a disagreement, let's have it without the lower brain impulsive shit. Anyway, he said, oh, yeah, but it's a power grab. It's all about power. It's all a power grab. And I thought, well, yeah, but that implies, you're saying that to imply that it's invalid and that it's bad and it's just all about power for power's sake. But if you were doing a power grab in order to try to take control of something in order to improve the scenario, that would still be a power grab that would be necessary to grab the wheel to steer the car in the right direction. And it wouldn't be accurate to just describe my grabbing the wheel to steer it away from you driving it into a tree as a power grab. It is a power grab. I'm taking the power away from you of driving the car into a tree. But by saying it's just a power grab, you are missing the point. And that, I think, happens a lot. People, they just, oh, it's all just about power. Well, sure. Power can be, well, power is just power. I was going to say good or bad. It's neither. It's just, power just refers to the ability to impose your capacity to change things or influence people. And that by itself, it is what it is. But what I find aggravating is so often when people are discussing different topics, it becomes a power struggle between the two people in that particular moment, rather than trying to understand which of these positions makes the most sense and why. And then when it seems as if there's no way to exactly conceptualize your position cogently, then people get angry, they pretend not to listen to you, they get quiet, or they make some bland pronouncement that is an attempt to skip, or a joke, to sort of skip over the entire thing. And I suppose some people might say, well, they're trying to be civil or nice or polite. But if you need to avoid the entire topic, that strikes me as somebody who has such anger issues that if you were pressed to discuss the topic and not joke your way out of it, or, just say some bland thing, some general phrase to get out of it, it makes me think that you're scared of your own anger. And then someone might say, well, that's good. They've sidestepped their anger. Yeah, but there's a third possibility, which is to discuss the subject in depth and at length without your anger and without your base impulses and without your need to raise your voice or repeat yourself or talk over the other person or be small. And the times that I see people not be small and actually engage with someone else is amazing. I see it sometimes, or I think I see it, because I can't tell anymore what's an illusion and what's real online. But when you see that, which is rare, it is so great. Because I think one of the things that we want, one of the agendas, unspoken agendas we have, just as human beings, in discussing anything, isn't even the thing we're discussing. One of the things that causes these rifts and these awkwardnesses is one of our agendas, I think, unspoken agenda in debating or discussing something with somebody and conversing with somebody, is that we want comity. We want to continue to be able to talk to this person in a friendly manner that's not nasty or ugly. Now, there are some people that seem to have no problem and seem to jump, just chomping at the bit to be able to be nasty. Anthony Weiner strikes me as one of those kind of people. And perhaps in politics or a certain brand of politics, people would say, well, that's just playing rough or whatever. And maybe it is. But generally speaking, I think people that are engaging other people, unless they really just see them as an enemy from the very beginning, one of the unspoken agendas in the conversation is, I'd like to have this conversation with you while still being able to maintain comity, niceness, friendliness, a pleasant manner, and not damage our connection. I'm not even going to say friendship, just our connection as two human beings. That won't make either of us want to shut down or stomp out, literally or figuratively, of the exchange. Rare. So, I'm going to do some interviews in upcoming episodes with different people about different things. and hopefully I'll see how much of that I can perpetuate. One of the interviews I'm going to do is going to be with, well, you know what? I'll do that one on a different channel. So for this channel, I'm going to keep up these little observations here and there, and I think I'll do one on the Israeli-Palestinian thing. Because fuck it, it's topical, and, that might be one of the ways I decide what to talk about is what's topical. But it's not all going to just be topical stuff. It's also going to be stuff that just interests me regardless of whether it's topical or not. And some stuff is topical forever, so to speak. All right. Signing off.